So hey, what's up guys? It's B-Dog. Today I'm coming at you with another video. Movies are my month for May. In May I watched a lot of movies, so I'm going to show them to you right now. First movie I've got up, Deadpool 2.
Yeah, I wanna shoot, baby.
I found this movie entertaining. It was fun, great CGI, great action, great performance by Ryan Reynolds. I do have a problem though. The story was not as good as the first one. It just wasn't as simple as the first one was. And it created a little bit of a problem, not too bad. They played out jokes just a little bit too much as well. But other than that, visually, it was an absolutely stunning movie. I do recommend this movie. Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind. This is a Studio Ghibli film. I like Studio Ghibli from what I've seen. This movie is very interesting. It's a cool animated movie, science fiction style. Visually, it's great. The animation style is a little bit crude, partially because it's the 80s, but it still looks pretty good. The story is pretty interesting. I can really appreciate what they were going for and the themes in the movie and the character relationships and development, especially between the main girl and everyone else. At times, the story is a little bit confusing and there are minuscule plot holes, as well as at times the dialogue explains a little bit too much, specifically with the main character where she kind of talks out everything when she's talking to herself. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I think they could have explained stuff just a little bit better. But I recommend this movie. Check it out. 12 Angry Men. This movie is considered by many to be a classic, and I agree. The two things that really make this movie fantastic and a classic is the story in which it's telling. It's very riveting, very in your face, even though it's really just dialogue. And then the dialogue is also the other factor. The dialogue is what pushes the movie, what makes the story go. It's done so well. It really creates intensity within these scenes and between the characters and what's going on in the story. One thing as well, the cinematography. You'd think, being that it's in one room, that it wouldn't be as big of a factor, but honestly it is. It creates such intensity in the scenes and honestly helps create claustrophobia, and also how he sometimes moves the camera throughout the room really gives an excellent feel to the movie. I highly recommend you check this one out. 12 Monkkeys. I like this movie. I think it's pretty excellent storytelling. I really like Bruce Willis's character in the movie. It's a pretty great sci-fi movie. In some aspects, it's grounded. In others, it's kind of out there, but it's grounded enough that you can appreciate it, and I really like that. As well as the relationship between Bruce Willis's character and this girl that he's trying to find, because this movie is a time travel movie. This movie is not a fantastic movie, but it is pretty good. Check it out. Here's a good one from my childhood. ScoobyDoo and the Cyber. I liked this movie when I was a kid because it was Scooby-Doo. The animation was fantastic. It looked really cool. You could really delve into this universe, especially it was in a cyber world, and they could really play with it however they wanted because it was in a computer game. That's the biggest up about this movie, is how it looks. It really creates a very dynamic, colorful, beautiful looking universe that kids can get lost into. The characters are actually well done for a kid's movie as well. The only flaw that I really saw was in Shaggy. He seemed a little bit too exaggerated at times and almost fake-ish. But other than that, I liked it. Good movie. Check it out. It Follows. I'm really not a big horror guy. I don't like to be scared at all. But when you tell it so well, I can't deny its excellence. And that's a key important part of this movie. This movie is truly scary. One of the smart things that this movie does is it halfway grounds itself in reality, but then it has other stuff to where they can say, nah, it's not really in the same universe as you. And they did this factor enough that it wasn't like a cop-out. You can clearly see it throughout the movie, but this movie is absolutely riveting. The character performances pretty much all around are great. This movie is enticing, but it's also scary. Like it draws you in and then it just scares you and kind of messes up your mind, but you're like, I gotta keep watching. I need to see the end. That's what makes a great horror movie, and this movie is one. Go check it out. Unfriended. I liked this movie a lot when I first saw it. I thought it was very interesting. It had some cool characters. This movie does have some glaring flaws, which I noticed when I watched it this month. This was the second time I watched it, particularly in the plot and some of the character development. But to me, this movie is actually pretty thought-provoking. And I thought they actually handled the story very well. And then how they developed a certain character and how they made them look at the end. The second time that I watched this movie, it really made me think about that and what they were actually trying to do, because the first time I was confused more so. I liked it, but I don't think I was sure why. Now I know why I like it. There are a ton of tropes, but in a way they half make fun of it, which I like. But I do recommend that you check out this movie, Solo, A Star Wars Story. You should definitely check out my review of this. I just did it. It's the last video before this one. So just go check that out so you can get my clear, in-depth thoughts. I'm kind of just like, well, whatever. It's kind of entertaining, kind of cool, kind of, majority of the performances were just fine. There wasn't anything that really stood out except for Donald Glover. He was great. Some of the performances were okay, but some were kind of a letdown, like Woody Harrelson's character, Alden Ehrenreich, who played Han Solo. There were parts where he was good and it was cool and it was funny, and then there were other parts where it was like, eh. But other than that, the CGI was great. The set pieces were great. The action scenes were great. It was a pretty visually stunning movie. Not particularly visually stunning, but your typical great Star Wars visually appealing movie. The soundtrack was great. I can say if you're a Star Wars fan, go check it out. But other than that, A Quiet Place. I thought that this was a great movie. I thought it was very well done by John Krasinski. It really took an interesting premise and made it great. And they really developed the characters well and had great interactions between the characters, even though interaction to some extent was limited because they couldn't speak due to the premise of the movie. Also, how they introduced some plot elements. They didn't really have any plot holes, and all the performances were fantastic. They have a deaf girl in this movie, and that's why this family survived, and I think that was brilliant that they used that. It makes complete sense. Completely makes sense that this family survived because they can do sign language. Because of this girl, it makes sense. And I really like that in my movies, that they make sense. The CGI was fantastic. The set pieces were awesome. It was a lot of countryside and corn, but there are also some great shots inside the house. Also, this one with a waterfall. I really liked that. I really liked being in this universe, even though it was very barren and kind of depressing. You should definitely go check out this movie. It's great. The Commuter, it's a fine movie. Feels a little bit like a Hollywood money grab. Just take an interesting premise, put in some tropes, make a somewhat interesting story, kind of a little bit of a slap job. Not too bad, but enough that I can notice it. I did like Liam Neeson's character. It wasn't fantastic. There really weren't any other standout performances, I do have to admit, but they weren't terrible either. If you're your average everyday moviegoer, you'll probably like this movie too. So I guess I recommend that you check this movie out. Sinister. Alex just showed this one to me. I don't hate this movie. It's fine. I like Ethan Hawke's performance. I liked his wife's performance. I liked his two kids' performances. It was a great storytelling up until the ending. There were a couple plot things here and there, but the ending to me made it bleh. I don't feel it fit with any of the themes that I can see, because there was actually a theme that I thought of that they actually wrapped up. I don't know if you should check it out. I won't say don't, but I won't say do it either. Last one, Murder on the Orient Express. I didn't know what to think going into this movie. I was very interested. It seemed like kind of a Clue on a Train type of feel. And I like that. I really like Clue. And honestly, the movie was just kind of okay to not really good. It wasn't terrible. There were some good elements. This movie looked fantastic. It was very visually appealing. I liked a lot of the shots and some of the cinematography. They were trying to be inventive with it, and I appreciate that. I can get behind that. But the story elements were kind of bleh. Sometimes they were confusing. They got a little bit confused in the plot process, and some of the characters weren't well fleshed out enough. This movie was also very slow paced. The story was definitely very slow. I know they wanted to go for that feel because it's kind of a slow burn detective type of feel, but they should have picked it up just a tad. It dragged on too long and I was losing interest quickly. Well, that's it for my movies of May. So comment what you thought of the movie, comment what you thought of me and my video, and then subscribe. So that's it. See you guys later. B-Dog out.